Hey guys, and welcome back to Ep.3 of Developers Unplugged. I've got an incredible guest with me. Ryan, thank you very much for joining the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
I know that you're not feeling totally well at the moment, but we're going to power through it. But like I actually said just before the recording, that it's probably the best voice ever for a podcast because it's nice and smooth, a bit deeper, powering through a cold.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a head cold, but like you said, it gives me sort of that radio flair. So we'll go with it.
Exactly that. So obviously, thank you so much, like I say, for being on the early stages of this podcast. Obviously, only episode 3, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Of course, you've got so much experience in software development. You've really kind of grown from being just literally a junior software developer, it seems, to all the way up to now leading teams and building, growing, all in Berlin as well. So it's such an incredible story that you've got. But I guess kind of just take me back, Ryan, from the very beginning of your journey in software development. I mean, how did you get into software development?
It all started when I was a child. And my father bought a PC for his business, and it had some manuals, how to use the PC, how to program it. And so I started playing around with it and started programming BASIC. This was way, way, way long ago. Bill Gates type stuff. When I was a teenager, I got my first contracts to actually write some commercial software. And that was kind of cool. I realized, hey, you can actually make money doing this. This is cool. This isn't just my nerdy hobby. Like, people will pay me to do this. And it moved on from there. In the mid 90s, I ended up moving to Cambridge, Massachusetts. A friend of mine got me an interview at a company. This is when the internet was first emerging. Got me an interview at a company. I got a trial job, and they kept me and promoted me very quickly, and it was great. I was there in the beginning building the internet, right? When it was emerging, when Netscape 1.0 was the hot thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes me back. Moved on from there. I found that I was pretty good at writing code, but I was also pretty good working with people. And the combination of those two things, it's a bit of a rare skill. There are a lot of technical people that aren't great with soft skills, and there are a lot of people with good soft skills that don't really have the technical chops. And I hit that sweet spot, and it really helped me progress in my career. I learned a lot from a lot of really smart people. I learned good things. I learned, things to avoid. Yeah, and it's been a great ride so far. I'm looking forward to see what comes next.
That's amazing. And as you mentioned, obviously, you was almost part of the internet before the internet as such. Before it was almost as such normalized. I think it was almost like, maybe, I don't know, maybe quote me on this, maybe like 1999, pre-1999, it seemed like the internet was almost like this make-believe thing. A lot of people didn't even understand it. It was almost like, what are you talking, what is coding, what is programming, what is a website?
It was the Wild West.
Exactly, yeah, and to some degree it kind of still is. But yeah, for sure. And I guess so. You obviously you grew up in the States, right, in the US,
In New York, yep.
in New York, and now obviously you're working in Germany. You've been in Germany for quite some time. Talk to me about that. I mean, why Germany out of all of the places?
It wasn't planned at all. When I was living in Boston, in Cambridge, I met a German tourist, a friend of a friend, and we hit it off. And she, we lived together moved back to New York for a while. And she wanted to come to Germany to study, and said, "Hey, why don't you come with me?" And I said, "Well, okay, let's go."
Wow.
And I ended up in Germany, and been mostly here ever since.
That's fantastic. And you've been in software development for such a long time. I mean, how long has it been since you first started programming?
Well, I'm giving away my age, but it's easily 40, 45 years at this point. So,
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's incredible. What has kept it fresh for you? Because I think a lot of people that I speak to, maybe going past 7 or 8 years in programming, often they're like, yeah, it gets a bit boring after a while. It gets a bit monotonous. Is there anything that you've done to kind of keep the spark alive, to keep it fresh? Because you're always so motivated. Whenever I talk to you, you're always so like passionate and enthusiastic. Whereas for a lot of people, they would kind of maybe be bored. Is there anything that you've done to kind of keep that going?
Well, coding is coding. I mean, writing code, the the act of writing code, the tools have gotten better and better, and they've progressed as time goes on. But the mental work of writing code is pretty much the same as it always has been.
Mm,
Um, there's a lot more help that you get, but there's a lot more complexity as well. And I think those two things sort of offset. In the early days of coding, we use CVS, and today everyone uses Git. It's kind of does the same thing. It's much more powerful, but much more complex.
mm,
But the actual writing code bit is pretty much the same. You have a problem you want to solve, and you write a set of instructions how to solve that problem. Um, so for me, what's been really interesting is to see the development of the tool set and the development of what you can do with code. Um, Throughout my entire, say, the first 20, 25 years of coding, the constraints were always the machine that you're working on, the
mm.
processor speed, the memory, these sorts of things, the cost of servers, all that stuff was always the constraint. It was, oh, if only I had a faster system, I could do something better.
Yeah.
Today we have unlimited, we've got clouds. I mean, even the biggest companies out there are only using a small portion of AWS or Azure or GCP or whatever. There's
Mm.
huge amounts of resources available. Um, GPUs, you can rent by the hour thousands of GPUs. I mean, you've got no constraints as far as within reason as far as what you can do with it. Um, Today it's all about the people, the brain power. Like, where do we take this to the next level? And looking at machine learning, looking at all the AI stuff going on, looking at
Mm.
Gen AI. Man, just as coding was getting boring again, it's super exciting. It's like, wow, you can do all this stuff that you could never do before.
I was about to say that actually, because AI, I mean, AI has been around for a very long time. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that AI has not just been since ChatGPT got released and it's kind of been sort of normalized to the public, but actually AI has been around for quite some time, actually. And it's kind of almost been like lurking in the background. And I think that people who are involved in tech, maybe engineers, have always kind of been like, AI is going to kick off at some point, like that was like 5 or 10 years ago. And now AI has really kicked off. Was there a point like just before AI got exciting that you maybe got a bit bored as such? Did the work kind of become a little bit repetitive? Because there's only so many things that you can do in software development to kind of keep it fresh, right? And then obviously this brand new thing come along called AI, and it's like, wow, okay, cool, and machine learning again. Was there like that kind of point just before AI really started kicking off where you was like, I wonder what's next?
Um, yes and no. To be fair, um, I made the transition at some point away from hands-on coding and more to management and strategy. One of the reasons for that, I wouldn't say boredom. One of the reasons for that is I realized to be a really, really good coder, you constantly have to learn and you constantly have to put effort into it. It's not something that you can just kind of do on the side and stay up to speed.
Mm,
The pace of development of of the environment has accelerated.
mm,
Um, and I think it's much more difficult to be an outstanding coder today than it was, say, 2025, simply because the amount of competition is enormous. There are hundreds and thousands and millions of developers today, whereas when I started, there were hundreds
mm.
or thousands. And it's a different world. And I realized that as I moved through my career, one of the challenges I always faced was I can do really cool stuff, but I sometimes felt that the people making the business decisions were not making the best business decisions, and we were doing the wrong thing.
Sure.
And we have all these smart people working hard, but we're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Um, and as I developed through my career, I said, well, I want to be the person that makes the decision so that we do the right thing. And because I was young and naive, and now I'm old and naive, I guess, because I still believe that you can do that. But yeah, and I found more and more that the value is being created not in writing code, it's what you do with it. It's what code you write. And avoiding mistakes, not writing code is
Mm,
probably the most valuable thing that you can do. So, going back to your original question, not being bored, I would say as such, but wanting to have my hands on the steering wheel and be in the driver's seat, has led me in a sense away from coding, but just to a position where I help to decide what gets coded rather than doing the actual coding myself.
sure, definitely. And I guess now that AI is absolutely here and here to stay, by the way, this isn't just a
Never going away.
phase. It's not going to go away at all. It's only going to get stronger, right?
Mhm.
And it's only going to get more prominent, and people are going to only speak about it even more, which seems
Yeah.
impossible because AI seems to be the thing that is just in every sentence at the moment. But how do you feel that AI, and this is a hard question to answer, by the way, Ryan, so I'm sorry about that, because there's so many ways you can answer it, but how do you feel that AI will impact software development?
Oh, this is a great question. I had a discussion. I was at a round table not so long ago. I had a discussion, and I put forth the theory that, or my hypothesis that AI will come to dominate low-level coding very quickly. And what does that mean? Um, Machines, basically all code that gets written gets at some point compiled down to machine language, which is just a bunch of ones and zeros, and it's specific to that particular chipset. And it says, hey, processor, do this thing, add
Yeah.
this number to that number, put this number over here.
Mm,
You can abstract that up to an assembly layer. An assembly is human readable, human writable, but still very low level, very complex. A lot of you're close to the hardware.
mm,
Um, and throughout my entire career, what's happened is coding has moved further and further away from the hardware and become more and more abstracted. Um, and my theory is the following, that AI will be very, very good at taking some high level code and optimizing it at a super low level,
mm,
um, getting higher performance, getting lower latency, getting fewer errors, all these sorts of things. And my prediction is it will come to dominate that level of coding very quickly. Um, and the where I see the biggest gain is being able to say you're comfortable with writing something in Python. That's your preferred language as a developer.
mm,
Um, there's no reason that Python can't be compiled down to machine language, optimized by an AI, and then exported in Java or in C++ or in JavaScript or in whatever you want.
mm,
And I see that as being sort of the next breakthrough in coding, is the ability to move between languages sort of interchangeably,
mm,
using AI to sort of optimize that code in both directions, to move it away from human readable and back into human readable. Um, you know, you speak Spanish and you write some code in Spanish, and now it gets exported to French because why not,
sure.
or Chinese. Um, to use an analogy, and I think that's a place where AI has just huge advantages over people. Um, Optimizing a huge, huge, huge program at a very low level is not something that a large number of developers are, one, going to want to do, and two, be very
Mm,
good at. It's complex, but it's something that machine learning um, can do very, very well. It's kind of the perfect use case because it's completely binary, and you've got a very limited set of constraints. You've got, only a certain number of instructions that a processor can handle. So to be super nerdy, I think that's where AI in the short term, as far as coding goes, may have the biggest impact, is at the lowest layers. Improved compiling, improved execution, reduction of costs by using fewer processors, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just one part of it. But I think that's something that we'll see a very big impact in coding quickly. In addition to the other end that we're already seeing, where AI is helping to write methods, it's helping to sort of complete code at very high levels. So people using various tools to help them code faster, code more reliably. I think it's at the two extremes of the stack, the highest level and the lowest level, that AI will have the biggest impact. The lowest level because it can just simply do things better than people can, and people don't really want to do this, which is why we keep pushing further and further away, more abstract. And at the highest levels, well, I need to write a method that's just like this other method that 20,000 people have done. Do it for me. Boom. Here's a chunk of code, right? And I think those are going to be the next big steps. One we've already started, and I'm sure Intel and AMD and the chip people are already using AI to do some of the low-level stuff. But I think that's going to become completely dominant very quickly.
Is that a positive thing, or is it a sort of a negative thing? Because on one side of the spectrum, you've got AI that does the work that maybe people don't often want to be doing, such more sort of low level. But in sort of another side, you kind of think, well, if you're, say, for example, you're just starting out your software development career, is it going to be increasingly quite difficult for sort of more junior engineers to find a job because of the emergence of AI?
I would argue that it already is. For the first time in a very long time, the number of software developers, particularly junior software developers, employed by companies is decreasing. People are being laid off, and that's something new. I mean, all the Apple, Google, Facebook, they've all been reducing their workforce, and through ups and downs, market ups and downs, and this and that, they've still been hiring. And we're seeing it's not just one or the other. We're seeing across the board people are reducing their workforce. I'm not saying it's strictly related to AI.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a factor in those decisions. If productivity continues to increase, and AI is the perfect tool to further increase developer productivity, then there will be at some point a less demand for the current skills that we have. That being said, back before cars were all the rage, everybody was riding around on horses and carriages. Cars came along, and all those horse breeders and all those farmers that were raising horses and all these horse people, their livelihoods went away, right? That being said, 10 times as many jobs were created in the automotive industry as there were people raising horses. So one set of skills sort of fades away, and a new set of skills comes into place. I mean, how many telephone operators are there today versus how many were back in the day? Does that mean that there are now hundreds of thousands of people without jobs? No, they're doing something different. And I think it's the same with today's coding. Will go away, but that doesn't mean that we won't need people to make computers do the things that we want them to do.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a really great analogy as well, actually, because yeah, before cars, of course, there was horses and carriages and things like that, and then cars came along, and it actually created more work for people with jobs that were completely brand new that hadn't even been a thing before then. What kind of positions do you feel, because again, of the dominance that AI will have on people's lives, what kind of positions, what kind of jobs do you feel that there will be in tech that maybe there aren't at the moment, that almost like don't exist, and this is maybe like 5 or 10 years in the future? Could you predict
Oh,
maybe what would be?
I think being one of the people that can interface effectively with AI will be a huge in-demand skill set. Um, Today, let's take ChatGPT as an example. I've got a friend, and he is just really, really talented at prompting. He gets really, really good results because he knows how to prompt ChatGPT really well, better than me, better than anybody else I know. Um, Now, that's a very specific use case, and I'm not saying that's a marketable skill today. It probably is, but in the future, developing a talent for getting the AI to do the things we want it to do is going to be huge. It's like the magic of programmers. When I was young, people that could program computers, they were the gods. They could do anything,
Yeah.
right? And today, programming is a skill. You can learn it at college. You can learn online.
Mm.
There's a million courses, all this kind of stuff. You can just, everybody's got a laptop, or you go to a library where there's a
Yeah.
computer, and you can learn how to program. That's easy. The next step, I think, in AI evolution is learning how to harness the tool to get value out of it.
Mm.
And I see there's a generation of people that are probably in college today, that for them, they're growing up with ChatGPT. Just to stick to our example, that's totally normal to them to use it,
Yeah.
um, and they're going to be way better at using it than dinosaurs like me, right? That it came later in their career, and I think that's going to be a valuable skill.
That's interesting. Do you feel that software developers should be worried about AI, or is it something that maybe should be embraced?
Embrace 100%.
Okay.
Um, Back when the internet came along, there were people that, oh, this internet, it's changing everything, and it's programming's not what it was, and
Mm.
um, each new development eliminates a set of skills that were useful before. But excuse me, each new development also opens doors,
Yeah.
and it's taking advantage of those new open doors, walking through them, and seeing what's on the other side. I think that's where we got to go.
Yeah, 100%. I think just from hearing it from yourself as well, I think some software developers maybe listening to this or watching this and kind of like, oh my God, maybe I need to change profession. Like
Never,
maybe
never,
this is
never,
it.
never.
Do you
It's
not
still the
think?
coolest thing out there.
Okay, cool. And do you feel that there's going to be a time, and this could be in any time frame, this can be in like this could be maybe like 10 years in the future, but do you feel that there could be a time where we don't need software developers anymore because AI is just so advanced? Do you feel that it could almost just replace software developers as a whole?
Yes, yes. Um, I'm hesitant to put a number on how far into the future that is. Um, but at some point, computers will be able to program themselves way better than we can do that. And that was kind of what I was talking about. We're starting at the two ends. Um, I think there's the development is going to be there to do
Mm.
exactly that. Software development is an expensive process, and there's a lot of incentive to optimize that process. Do I think 10 years? No, not at all. And do I think that those technical people will suddenly be out of a job and have nothing to do? not at all. I think that that skill set will emerge. This is not something that flip a switch and suddenly programs are writing themselves and all this. I think it will be development. Um, and I think that people will develop skills along with this, and they will still find how to be really, really good at getting a system to deliver the results that you want.
Mm.
I'll take myself as an example. When I was much younger, I was writing code. I was writing Perl, which at the
Mm.
time was a very performant, language for doing certain manipulations and stuff.
Mm.
It was also extremely complex and very difficult to read and all this kind of stuff. But it was a really good tool
Yeah.
for doing it. Today, I would guess that almost no one in the world writes Perl and uses it as a production language. Of course, for regular expressions and all that kind of stuff, we sort of adopted the Perl toolkit. But Perl as a language is basically dead. And I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going, no, 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 you're wrong. It's, we're still using it. But just to take an example,
Yeah.
just because there was no more demand for writing Perl did not mean that there was no more demand for my skills, right? I was able to evolve to the next level. After I was writing Perl, I got really into JavaScript and then into server-side JavaScript. So I started doing some JavaScript stuff. And that's still around today. I mean, lots of people are still writing JavaScript.
Mm.
Um, so, do I think that people should be afraid? Hell no. The future is bright. As always, you have to be willing and able to adapt.
Yeah.
And developers are in general very smart, motivated people.
Mm.
Um, the future is very bright. What you're doing today has no relation to what you're going to be doing 20 years from now, but that's okay. That's the speed of development of technology. It's new all the time. So
Mm.
you're not going to be out of a job. You're just going to be doing something different.
Do you think that that's the key then for software developers in 2024, whatever seniority that they are writing code right now, is to almost just have an open mind, be able to adapt, just like what you did. You switched from Perl to writing JavaScript, and it's clearly something that's paid off, because I think if you'd have stayed with Perl, you maybe wouldn't have been able to find a job. Do you feel like
Yeah.
that's probably one of the biggest big pieces of advice that you could give to software developers?
Keep learning. Never
Mm.
stop. Never, never, never stop learning. That is the fatal flaw that you can make as a developer, is to assume that where you are today is going to be where you are tomorrow.
Mm.
Um, just keep learning, stay on top of things, hack stuff, hack stuff. That's what it's all about.
Within
Legally hack
legal
stuff. Legally hack stuff.
legally, no
And,
no
and, and I mean
governance.
hack in the original sense, create new things,
Mm.
have fun rather than in the sense of black hat cause damage kind of thing. Try
Yeah.
stuff out, create new things.
Yeah, and just always ask new questions as well, right? Like, always ask questions. I think also always being open to being challenged as well. Like, it doesn't matter, what kind of seniority level you are. It may even be that somebody like a work student engineer comes into a team and asks you a question and challenges you. Almost be open to that. I think
Oh,
having
for sure.
these people in an engineering team is pivotal for growth of everyone. And sometimes senior engineers, when it gets to like 5 to 7 years of experience, they're almost like, I've made it. This is it. Like, I don't need to learn anymore. I'm a senior engineer. I can write code. There's nothing else that anyone else can teach me, and that's it. And like you mentioned, it's such a fatal error to do that, because
Dead wrong. Dead wrong.
yeah.
That's the wrong mindset to have. Um, because every year from every college in the world, every university, there is a new generation of coders coming out that are going to be hungry for your job, right? And there's competition, and as soon as you feel that you've made it, and you stop pushing, you stop trying, you've basically sealed your fate. It's a matter of time before you're no longer relevant. The skills that you have today are no longer in high demand. Yeah, don't make that mistake. Keep learning, keep trying new things, be open to advances. Advances are good. Without advances in tech, we'd still be back in the days when there were 1,000 programmers, not 10 million, right? I mean,
Writing Perl.
yeah. We'd still be writing Perl, or I was going to give the example of, writing Fortran and all that stuff, but that's ancient.
Look, Ryan, I think that's kind of where we'll leave it. I mean, it's been such a brilliant conversation, and again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that you're not feeling 100%. Obviously, slightly got a bit of a cold, but really powered through it. And it's been such a really interesting conversation. Like I say, you've got so much experience in software engineering. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Harry. It's been great to hear to be here. To everyone watching, please excuse my health situation. I'll be back on my feet in just a day or two, but it's been really fun, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Perfect. Part 2 coming soon, right? When you're at full health as well, maybe in a few months' time.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Have a good day.